So, Carla, I'd say I have it more when going for a PR or maybe actually lifting, but rituals in sports are pretty helpful. What are some non-negotiable pre-race rituals that you have that you kind of swear by?
I get my hair done, which I got done 2 days ago I'm racing in 3 weeks. I get my nails done the week before race, and then I cover myself in as much glitter as humanly possible for the actual race. But I'm very simple. And then I've got like one song that I really like listening to.
What's the song?
Nails, Hair, Hips, Heels by Todrickle. Because it basically like just pumps you up and makes you think you're queen of the world and like disses everyone else, and it like gets me in the zone.
How long have you been doing the like hair, nails, glitter? When was the first hair, nails, glitter ritual?
It's probably slowly built up race on race, and now it's like spiraled out of control. I think it was when I did Comrades like 2 years ago, and I said to Erin, like, how much glitter should I put on? More glitter? She's like, you can never have enough glitter, like more. I was like, okay. So yeah, it's just fun. Like for me, it's like just take the edge off it, and I don't have anything deep and meaningful.
No, I like
it's
that.
It's part of the fun for me.
It's going to be hard enough as it is. You may as well have fun with it. Hein, do you have any pre-race rituals?
Mine's not far off Carla's, but not the nails part. Getting a haircut, hence the cut now. I'm like I said, I'm racing next week, and it's funny. I had a conversation with some mates this week about Cape Town Marathon, and the one thing that was common amongst everybody is like, you need to book your fade in, like for because so it's, for others it's getting a massage, but yeah, I think haircut is one thing. I think the last 3 or 4 years, I tend to shave my legs just for races. I have like 3 races for 4 races a year, and then everybody the rest of the time I don't. So it's just like mentally getting prepared. Like this is like something that's it's race week, and I'm out there to enjoy the moment, but like just getting the mindset right.
Is the leg shaving, does that come from the football days, or is that...
No. Football days, ironically, probably not the best thing, but I just shave like from like mid, because you strap your ankles, and it's the worst thing with the strapping. Once you pull off, feels like you're waxing, and so, no, the leg shaving is definitely not the soccer players won't allow you to.
Okay.
Well, probably now, I think the era now, the football players, it's a common thing, but it came, I think, the last 4 or 5 years, and just as part of the process, yeah.
Nice. Nick, personally, I found that being in a focus prep has really helped me with bringing a greater degree of intention to my life as a whole. That's a big part of the reason why I do it. Running or any sort of event prep, for that matter, I think can act as a very powerful tool to create purpose in one's life for a period of time. What are some psychological upsides that you found in the sport of running? And then on the flip side also, what are some red flags or things to be cautious of when going down the endurance rabbit hole?
That's an interesting one. What was the first part?
The first one was, what are some of the upsides that you found?
I think running can become a bit of an analogy for any other challenge of life. So in a sense, especially with endurance running, you have to really think about your why. I mean, I'm repeating myself here, but you have to think about why you're deciding to do the things you're doing. And I think for life, that's probably a good idea as well. Maybe sometimes you get pulled along into a job or a career or a relationship or a certain decision, and you might not have thought it through properly, and then the wheels can come off. I think with endurance running, the wheels can come off pretty easily if you haven't thought something through properly, like which socks should I wear? I mean, that's from personal experience. Being too laissez-faire with my sock choice at UTCT and really regretting that, or forgetting something that was quite key. So I think being did you call it a focused prepper? Is that what you said?
Yeah, just being in prep, I suppose.
Yeah. So that can be, good for life. It can carry over to life. And I think maybe on the flip side, a red flag is maybe being too obsessional or too perfectionistic is maybe one way to put it. especially in endurance running, things are going to go wrong. You're going to encounter something you haven't anticipated, you haven't got a plan for. Doesn't matter how many plan A, B, and C's you have, something is going to happen. At UTCT, there was a fire on the course. I mean, no one anticipated there was going to be a fire. So it was on a very particular section of the course. A lot of people were nervous about that section. All of a sudden, we didn't have to run that section. Instead, we had to come off the mountain. So now you've got a very steep downhill in the middle of the night. Then you have to sit in a taxi and wait for other runners to drive you around the fire. And I fell asleep in the taxi. I don't know how long I was asleep for. I was trying to decide, do I pause my watch? Do I not pause my watch? What does this mean for my Strava? If suddenly I'm being driven part of the course, it was, I didn't anticipate that. Okay, that's not that serious, not life or death. But the point is that if you're too obsessional about controlling every aspect of the race, or you're too obsessional about controlling every aspect of your life, you're gonna suffer.
Hein, what part of Cape Town's running community, you're being so involved in it, what aspect of the Cape Town running community kind of sets it apart from other communities and makes it unique?
I think it's one of the beauties about South Africa. We're such a mix of cultures and races and our backgrounds, right? And we've seen it over and over through sport, and Springboks is a good example of how sport brings people together. We've seen it with Full Send in my personal case, like the diversity and the inclusivity of the group of runners that come, from those running their first marathon to some running, their upteenth. From an age point of view, it's from 20-year-olds to up to 50-year-olds, and then just collectively, like everyone uplifting each other. I think our community is super inviting, and I am obviously biased, so but and we want to support each other in every way possible. I find that we stand on the shoulders of others, so to speak, and as people in general, I think we are super critical of ourselves, and there's low self-belief. But what I've seen in our community events is that seeing someone else that you respect, or people you look up to in terms of running, when they believing in you and your ability, suddenly you also have a bit better self-belief. And that's been one thing I've taken away from a lot of what we have got going over here. I feel also in our community we're super approachable. Carla attends many other community runs and all those kind of things, and I don't think it's necessarily something that rest of the world experiences, but maybe they do. So yeah, and I'm super excited for when, I'm speaking positively, that when Cape Town is announced as a world major, for the rest of the world to actually experience the culture and the community that we have here. It's very much community over competition for me. I think UTCT a few years ago had this whole thing about how Cape Town's trail community is so amazing, and I think it's now the time that the world sees the road is as impressive and compete.
And to build on the community side of things, open to everyone, running can sometimes be intimidating for newcomers, and I personally know a few people who don't necessarily participate in some of these awesome events because they feel nervous to do so. Of course they don't have to, but for those struggling with serious nerves around going to their first event or their first marathon, or someone who is not actually partaking because of the social intimidation, how would you encourage them to give it a go?
I think for me, it's easier said than done. I find that a lot of people who start running, obviously at this point, is super trending and sexy, and there's so many run crews and run clubs, and brands are getting on top of it. So running now, there's more people running than probably 5 years ago, as an example, and that's great, and I'm here for it. But I think so the barrier to access is a lot lower. So to your point about encouraging someone to get going, I think there is a space for every type of runner or personality out there. You just need to find that, and I think Cape Town offers a lot in that sense. Whether you just want to be a recreational social runner doing a 5K on the prom, or if you want to aspire to doing a marathon or ultra marathon or do a trail. I think this is something for everyone. It's just finding your niche or your tribe, so to speak, that speaks to you and that you can relate. Because yeah, that's always the thing. Because that's the reason that you're gonna come back to that specific group or not. Like, you know, so it's finding your people. We're all running, so that's one common denominator. So we're all there for one purpose, is to run, and the social aspects is very big, you know, for why people actually come back. The one negative thing, if I have to touch on that I have found is that people, like the identity, the personal identity, is very much like connected to being a runner. So when they're especially injured, suddenly they feel such a disconnect to the world. And I've seen to so many people themselves that, like, you know, you don't get invited anymore to a run or like those sort of things. And I think it's a fine balance from like starting to run, where you're saying, and then just just finding your people and resonating with those people. And many of running's given me so much as an example that a lot of my friends are now, they feel like family. So it's because you have, you know, there's also commonalities. So I think that's just finding your tribe, so to speak.
Okay, I'm on the bottom edge of everyone here, so I can maybe speak to kind of like having, like, not sometimes feeling fit enough to join certain run clubs and things like that. And I think even in like my own journey in fitness and health, I think it's always important to remember, even with anything, anyone started at the bottom. Like, no one became an expert ultramarathon runner in a blink of an eye. So you joining people who are better than you, I know it can seem intimidating, but they've put in the work, they started somewhere, they're not looking at you going, oh, she's slow or he's slow, that's so annoying. I think it's often like they're more pleased that you're actually there, getting involved, you know, putting in the effort to do something that's really difficult. And I think everyone here and on the panel can also just agree that starting running is really hard. And when you're not fit, or even pushing the distances from 5 to 10 upwards, it's always going to be hard. So it doesn't matter like what phase you're in, if you're going from a 10 to a 15 and Sev's going from 100 to 160 kilometers, you know, we're all pushing ourselves in some respect. And I think actually joining clubs or groups or gyms with people that are better than you is only going to make yourself better. And I think, like, you surround yourself with people who are doing really hard things, got strong mindsets. I find it very rare, if you're surrounded by people who are really inspiring, that you're going to be like, I'm staying at home tomorrow, you know. It's probably going to make you want to wake up and even just do that 5K on the prom. So I think, like, that's where running and the running community in Cape Town is really positive. Like you said, so many people have started running, and also, like, inspired people who thought they're like, I'm not a runner, are now runners and are very good at it and enjoying it. So I think that's a really, really positive thing. Yeah.
I think there's also so many roles within running for non-runners. So Cape Town Marathon, for example, to just be on the roadside and have made a funny sign or something and to hold that up is extremely useful to the runners, and it's hopefully fun for you. And it's incredibly inspiring to watch runners. I mean, one of my first memories of runners, I was sitting at Power and the Glory on a Saturday afternoon having a beer, and a friend ran past with a number on his top. I was like, where are you going? He's like, up Lion's Head. I'm like, why? He said, I'm doing this thing called 3 Peaks Challenge. I thought, that's absolutely crazy. And then he came back down, and I was having my second or third pint. I was like, bye, you lunatic. And then I've done that race like 7 times. I love that race. But at first, you think, what is going on here? And then it like plants a seed, and you eventually think, if they're doing that, I can do that.
I like that. I really like also the zoom out of, there are so many roles within the running community that don't necessarily have to involve running. And supporting is one of the most enjoyable things ever. It's so much fun to share in, you know, that little part of someone's journey where they've put in all this effort, or they're just kind of there to experience the race day and you get to cheer them on. And it's a really cool community moment where you feel very connected to a whole bunch of random people, and it's very special and a lot of fun. I also think just to remind yourself of the fact that a lot of the time, I think most of the time, aside from professionals, we're doing it for the sake of doing it. We're not doing it to be the best. So remember that it's meant to be fun. Of course, you're meant to challenge yourself to be a better version of yourself, but it's not necessarily about being, in absolute terms, the number one runner. So don't put that pressure on yourself. If somebody's a better runner than you, that's not necessarily why you're there, right?
I think just to add to something that Nick said earlier about how running translates to life, in essence, and I think, you know, by you starting to run and actually doing a hard thing, at which Keri alluded to earlier, it's no different to like doing that difficult project at work, or taking a leap of faith and going for a new job, or, you know, like taking a risk. It's you're gonna doubt yourself initially, but it's just actually doing it, and in the process you get to know yourself a bit better. So running is no different. Like, you know, entering at first 5K, it seems like now 5K is like a casual run, but like it was a time like a 5K was daunting, you know. So it's just it transfers to so many aspects in your life. It's just about, like, you know, backing yourself and just trying something new, and, you know, failing forward if you do.
Carla, as someone who has coached herself for a good while, I know you did that for a chunk, how important is it that someone doing a running event, marathon or otherwise, for the first time gets professional guidance?
So yeah, I coach myself for quite a while, but I will just say yes to anything. Like, so I got a coach to basically rein me in, because if someone's like, let's go run to Rwanda, I will say yes. And I've signed up to many a project like that. So for me, the role of a coach in my running journey is to make sure that I'm not doing anything stupid. And I think that is the role of a coach when training for a marathon, or if you're just getting into running and you've got no idea where to start or where to begin. They're going to make sure that there's that progressive overload, that you're having those down weeks, that when you get ill or injured or you have those doubts, they can rationalize everything for you and, you know, be your hype man, and at the same time maybe crack the whip a little bit and tell you to stop being soft and get out the door. So yeah, for me, having a coach is really important, and I do think that they can add a lot of value. But it's also about finding the right coach for you, because there's so many different types of ways that you can do it. It could just be that you just get a program that someone gives you for 12 weeks that's tailored towards what your goals are, and it builds you up progressively. And if you follow it properly and don't go and do anything rogue, you will get to the finish line in the best shape possible. Someone else might need someone to check in with them every week and talk them through their sessions and what they've been doing, or you might just want to check in with someone once a month. I have to fill out a log for my coach every single day, where I basically have to write down how my session was, but I don't talk to him every day, mainly because when I do talk to him, our conversations are between 2 and 6 hours, and no one's got time for that. So it is about finding the right person for you. And if the first coach doesn't work, look around, there's lots of people doing it, and it's someone that you can connect with. And I definitely think that they can help you achieve your goals a lot better than you winging it by yourself.
The reining in thing is so important, because I think a lot of the biggest mistake I've definitely seen happen on a recurring basis with people new to running in particular is too much too soon. It's the kind of this I suppose this perceived linear relationship of the more I run the better, which is not necessarily the case at all. And having someone experienced and qualified tell you, no, that's not good, you can then take your down weeks and not feel weird about it, and trust, as Hein, you said earlier, trust the process. So if you can get one, I think it is really a huge asset to have someone in your corner. Speaking of stupid things and first-time advice, open to all four of you. For somebody running their first marathon, what is the advice you'd give them if you'd want them to have the worst possible experience?
What, the worst?
Yes. What would you tell them if you wanted them to have the worst experience ever doing their first marathon?
Do what I did on my first marathon and think that you're Paula Radcliffe and going to win it, and go out as hard as you possibly can until you die, and you will.
Go till you blow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So aside from nutritional things, I think not drinking enough water or electrolytes during the run. I think sometimes we think if we're not thirsty, we don't need to, but water and hydration also controls like temperature regulation, cramps, things like that. So if the race day is hotter than the days that you've trained or in a different climate, please just make sure you take that into account, because it can be really uncomfortable, and mental, physical, all things can go when there's severe dehydration. So also don't skip the water station, stop and get enough things and just monitor that, because that's problematic.
My contribution would be, don't use chamois cream. Do not think about chafe. It's not going to happen. Don't consider it. Don't think that you might have chafe in areas that you didn't possibly consider before. Don't have a contingency plan where you have a small little something tucked away that if you do chafe, you can kind of do some damage control. There's often that moment where you hit the wall in a long run. It comes at different times for different people. For me, typically in the marathon, it's around 28 to 32 Ks. And then it just gets absolutely awful every time. If this is your first time doing the marathon, enjoy. When is that usually for you, Nick? And how do you navigate that wall moment?
It's so unpredictable. Last year, Cape Town Marathon, it was like kilometer 1. I was like, oh God, this is going to suck. I just never really got comfortable. But how to navigate it? I think you have to anticipate it. And the first time, you don't know what it is, and it really sucks. And I remember at New York, I remember the photos of me after kilometer 30. I just look like a ghost. I'm just not smiling. I have this blank look in my face, and I'm a bit pale. And I think it took me a few years to realize I was probably just completely under-fueled. And I think that's a very common reason for bonking or for hitting the wall. What was the question again?
It was, when is the wall for you typically, and how do you navigate it?
Yeah, it's not typical, but I think I navigate it by, I just take my fueling really seriously now, and even today, Erin and I ran for an hour and a half. My watch beeps every 35 minutes telling me to eat, and I just put something in my mouth and just stick to that, and it works.
How do you get it to beep? That's very smart.
I'll show you. It's on there, yeah.
Cheapers, that's clever. I know a lot of people here who should be doing that. No, but I just check the time the whole time, so I'm doing this.
I used to do that, and then, you reach a point in the race where you're like, -3, carry the 8, and you're like, I don't know.
That's a game changer.
No, and I'm like, I don't know when I lost 8.
It's
a horrible feeling, so.
Jeez, I'm definitely coming to you after this.
Minutes.
Okay. The wall, oftentimes there's cramping involved. I know that typically we want to proactively fuel and make sure that we're kind of with the beepings, right? Having the nutrition on the time and not letting the wheels fall off and then trying to fix it. But if the wheels are falling off, specifically if you're cramping, Keri, what would you suggest we do nutrition-wise for damage control?
So a lot of the research is around pickle juice. So there's some cramp shot pickle juice things that are available like pretty much anywhere, and I'm not sure if anyone's used it, but a lot of the time people report it's quite bulletproof. It's basically in like a little gel shot, and you just slug it back, and it kind of helps the cramps in that moment. And then thereafter, just make sure that you are either having salt or sodium tablets, whatever you've kind of figured out works, or are actually having fluid or electrolytes in your water to prevent that. And obviously if you are, as you run and as you run more often in different climates, you'll realize whether you're a salty sweater or not. And take note of that. So your friend who's not got like salt on their head afterwards probably won't need as much as you do. And then that's also just, like I said earlier, take awareness of like what the climate is. So now as we're getting closer to December, Jan, every race that happens, UTCTs and all of that, it's probably going to be hot. So whereas your training blocks before that could have been in the winter months, so that can happen. Yeah, so the pickle juice is a really good shout.
Jeez. Has anyone else heard of pickle juice before? Okay. Is that what you do when you're cramping?
Yeah, so I think the first thing with cramp, if you're suffering from cramp, first of all, you have to make sure that you're training at the pace that you want to race at. That's normally the common mistake. People go out way too quick. You need to make sure that you're doing strength and that your muscles are conditioned for the work you're doing. If you've ticked those boxes off, and then you're still getting cramp, which I was getting in quite a lot of my races over the past couple of years and had to do some unpacking of it, I found for me that I was using caffeine, and I actually spoke to a nutritionist, sports dietitian, and they said that there's some research that caffeine, because it increases your core body temperature a little bit, can push you over the edge and lead to cramping. And then as soon as you get that cramp, you take the pickle juice and it alleviates it. And for me, that was definitely true. I've now cut out caffeine, and in the last race that I did, I didn't cramp at all. And at Comrades this year, I probably took 7 sachets of pickle juice, which is as disgusting as it sounds, but the science and the research behind it is that it does shock your nervous system. It's basically like, oh my God, what is that? And it's a bit of a neural reset. And it is disgusting, but it does work.
Where do we get pickle juice?
Sportsman's.
Okay.
Yeah.
Noted.
But you can't take it as a preventative. You can only take it as soon as the cramp sits on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I know I've seen that Tony McCann does a lot of like Red Bulls and caffeine in her runs. So you've completely cut that out now.
No, like caffeine it's an amazing supplement if your body can use it. Like it used to be banned by World Anti-Doping because it does have a performance benefit to it. But for me, it was affecting my running negatively. So I decided that I'd actually not have the caffeine in racing to stop cramping because that was inhibiting me more. But if you can tolerate caffeine, it is definitely a performance enhancer.
I also think with caffeine, especially in longer races, it's good to just be mindful or kind of, again, test it. Some people say if you can't maintain the caffeine, if you're taking it from the beginning and you can't maintain it kind of equally throughout the run, some people do have those crashes. And obviously it comes down to individual sensitivity. So a lot of recommendations, or people start out, like if you have a long run, start from like middle race to the end with the caffeine. So it really gives you that extra boost when you are fatiguing versus starting with the caffeine in the beginning, taking plain, no caffeine gels, and then realizing halfway you're tired and trying to take it again. So the timing of caffeine, if you are going to use it, is also helpful and important to like think about. Yeah.
Is caffeine a diuretic?
Yeah. So
I have, but I can't pinpoint. No, because today I actually had my carb drink had caffeine in it, and I kept weeing, and I was like, "What is?" But now I'm just kind of thinking about that. Yeah, this is true.
Yeah. So even coffee cups, like we don't really. If you're having a 250 ml of coffee, I always just say to clients and stuff, make sure you're adding on an extra 250 ml of hydration. But obviously, if you are running, that is important to take note, especially if you take in high dose caffeines. But like, you can also get like caffeine and sugar and stuff and Coke. I'm not sure if anyone runs and has Coke mid-race, but it also can be really great. I don't know if you guys have Coke.
Love a Coke. During and post.
Red ambulance.
I have a few quick fire this or that. Shout out 9-4 panel. Where's Lexi? So you've got to pick one that you have for the rest of your life, and you can't have the other one, right? Trail or road?
You're asking all of us.
Yeah, all of you.
I was hoping you wouldn't ask me that question. Trail.
Trail.
What? Hein, I thought you'd go road. You're always on the road.
Because I'm doing road races. I'm not going to train for a road race on the mountain.
Fair.
Yeah. But yeah, at this moment it's a roadblock, but yeah, trail if I had a choice.
Okay.
Probably trail because nicer views.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm glad with those answers. Gel or carb drink?
Carb drink.
Gel.
Drink.
Interesting. I hate carb drinks. They're hectic.
Have you tried any of the neutral flavors?
Yes, and they're still sweet, which is not neutral for me. I get serious flavor fatigue, so specifically around very sweet things. So yeah, it's not fun, but it is what it is. It's easier to just squirt it down quickly. The carb drink there's so much volume. I feel like
So some of the, just for try, some of the carb drinks you mix in like a 500 mils. I'm assuming you're running with a vest. So you have carb drink in the one and not in plain water in the other. So you can almost like alternate with it. So some of the carb drinks you mix with, it's like 90 grams of carbs in one 500 mil. And that could pretty much be a whole hour sorted, or 2 hours, and you sip. Just, you can try, or you can lower the dose so it's not as sweet.
Gel.
I also got serious flavor fatigue during long races, and then I started chewing gum, and it helps so much, especially with xylitol.
interesting.
I'm not going as fast as you. I'm not going to choke.
So Seb, like on what Keri was saying with the unflavored carb drink, I do that, like one flavored, one unflavored, but then like with the unflavored one you can throw in electrolytes as well. So you can make sure you get your sodium in as well. If the carb drink doesn't have sufficient sodium.
Okay. Also, the ones that are dosed, the carb drinks that are dosed appropriately for me, because I take in a lot of carbs, they're so viscous. It's almost like a gel in the flask, because I'm going for like the 80 gram per sachet ones. But anyway, I would say a gel for me. Yeah. Sandwich or salted potatoes?
Yeah, potatoes.
What kind of sandwich? I tried a really good sandwich the other day. The Deli Social in Hout Bay has got this banger focaccia sandwich with like salami, cheese, and like this hot honey. That,
Have you had the focaccia sandwich at Southeaster?
yeah, and
Better than
Brode is
that.
my friend, and I'm going to stab him in the back and say go to Deli Social because
Wow.
it's out of this world.
That's high praise.
Are you asking for running or just like
For no,
because the way Carla
For
sounds is
running,
like
for running.
I just got excited about
Yeah.
sandwiches.
are we talking general sandwiches here or while you're running?
No, for running.
Salted potatoes.
Also potatoes. I'm going to say sandwiches. Because you've also got you've got versatility, you've got variety. You guys are like, you're locked into one flavor profile with potatoes.
Can I tell you something? Like last year for Comrades, I had a seconder and he missed 2 stops because of traffic. He couldn't get me, and then I ran with a mate of mine, and his seconder had like this whole cooler box, and it was like a buffet, and it's probably the weirdest thing I've eaten on a race, but like that egg mayo sandwich, and that was the best egg mayo sandwich when he was at 60 Ks. So in that case, the sandwich was like a go-to. I mean, it was like, but yeah. So
Next one is sweet or savory for the flavor profile on runs.
Obviously savory.
Thanks.
Sweet.
Wow. Okay.
I've never thought of it that way, but savory.
Okay.
I like savory more, but from like a practical sense, you're not going to find much effective stuff that's savory.
Somebody needs to invent a savory something that is as well dosed, because I'd be there. Your savory for me. Final one. This actually came up on the podcast with Kanye. I don't know if Kanye is here. No. During the week. So if you had to choose between the Cape Town Marathon Loop of Death or the hill from Hout Bay to Constantia in the Two Oceans Ultra, which one would you pick?
Obviously the loop of death.
Really?
Obviously. That hill is awful.
But the Loop of Death has like this psychological thing where you think you're further than you are, and fine.
It's flat.
But I feel like you can walk up the hill.
There is nothing enjoyable about that hill,
Except for the cheer zone at the top.
I suppose. And the ice creams and all that stuff. But I can't hear the crowd when I get to the top.
You
I
can.
hear like the Grim Reaper in my ear.
You've got a channel, you're in Oprah. That's
I
what
don't
your
like
first
Oprah. Did I
marathon
not
was
make
made
that
for.
clear? I don't like the shouting.
Fine.
I'll take the Constantia, Nick, but it's because I think I allow myself to walk there. So mentally, where I get down on myself when I come to the loop of death and I start walking. Like, you know, whereas that one, I prepare myself. I'm going to walk here, so it's okay. So then I'll take that one.
Okay.
I have no experience with either.
Okay. I'd recommend the hill, to be honest. I also feel totally fine walking up that. So, all right. Guys.
Can we ask the audience that one?
Oh yeah, let's by show. Actually, how would we do that? By show of hands, who would take the loop of death? Sheepers. So you'd all rather take the hill, pretty much. Interesting. You can also just answer in theory. You don't have to have experienced it. But that's a great way to pivot into the final bit, which is audience questions. So we're going to open it up to the floor. If anyone's got any questions for our panelists, please fire away. You can just, yes, Josh.
Times during your careers when you've had like injuries, but then events come in at the same time. How or have you ever had to make decisions for the club in the event? If so, can you share that experience and how did you deal with it?
So at times during your careers, have you had injuries during the prep, and have you had to pull out due to injury during a prep? And can you just speak to that experience?
I actually had an injury before Comrades this year. So it was about 6 weeks before the race where I then was getting a pain in the side of my leg. I went to the physio. She told me I had to go to the doctor, and I ended up having a stress reaction in my leg and got told that I couldn't run for 3 weeks, and the race was in 6 weeks' time. At that point, I was like, okay, I'll give you 2 weeks of no running. And I basically just asked them, what am I allowed to do? So I wasn't allowed to do any loading through that leg, but I could cycle, I could aqua jog, I could do strength that wasn't load bearing on my left leg, I could do it on my right leg. So I basically just did everything else that I possibly could, and still was able to do the race. I didn't have to pull out. I went and had another scan and a checkup, and it was fine. And I think always when you have an injury, it's finding out what your parameters are, what you can do, what you can't do, what the time frame is. It might be that it's too close to the race and you have to pull out. And in that case, it might be, well, what's the timeline to getting better? And then you can pick another race, I don't know, 2 months, 6 months, 1 year ahead for you to have something to look forward to and want to do that rehab and get stronger. Or it might be that you still can do the race as long as you are willing to cross-train and become a traitor to runners and become a cyclist like I did. So yeah, it is a great question. I think it's always finding what those limits are and what you're willing to do within those limits. But don't get disheartened. There is normally another option, whether that is cross-train or you just push the race out slightly.
I don't have experience, but from a kind of like being in the health professional space with runners and things like that, I think runners tend to have this, like Nick mentioned in the beginning, this obsession with training, the race. There will be more races and there will be more marathons. I think when you just start racing, or obviously kind of like new in your running, people often think like you put that marathon or that race on a bit of a pedestal, but we need to make sure that our bodies have longevity. You want to run for a good 2-3 years. You ignored that injury, it got way worse, and now you can no longer run at that level that you want to. So I think my advice is always just check it out if something's not right, and listen to the people that were put in your path to look after you. So your physios, your doctors, you know, make sure you follow what they're saying. Obviously, on the bright side, like Cara said, like do the things that you're allowed to do. But yeah, it's there will be more races, and you want to be able to exercise and race for more than just once. So yeah, I think a lot of the time runners will push through injuries, niggles when they probably shouldn't have.
I just want to add to that, saying that also maybe because we're older, three of us over here, we've had a bit more experience. But like, I think when you're like in your 20s, you just kind of feel like you can muscle through everything. Like, you're just gonna like go till you blow and like suffer the consequences afterwards. And whereas I think now I'm at a stage, to Keri's point, where you want to play the long game. So what is the upside and the downside? Yeah, you do the race, but then you're probably off for 6 months afterwards, and and you've got a bigger problem to deal with. And to Carla's thing is about like maybe skip this one and then set your sights on another one, because more than likely the same race you missed, you can do it the following year. So it's being realistic about it and managing expectations, I think, at the end of the day.
Maybe slightly differently to what you'd intended, what the intention of your question was, but personally about 3 or 4 years ago, I suffered kind of a mental injury, like personal loss, and I was in the middle of prep, and I pulled the plug on prep, and I thought it was the kind of wisest thing to do because I felt my full focus should be in processing that thing and working on that injury, if you want to call it that, and I felt like very at peace with diverting my attention more to a recovery sort of mindset as opposed to like a building mindset, because in that instance, whether it's physical or mental, when you are not at 100%, your priority should be getting to 100%. And I think it may have been the sporting background that gave me the sort of confidence to make that decision and not feel weird about it. But I definitely get that when you do get hurt and you have put all this expectation on yourself around a prep, that it can be quite daunting to like pull the plug on it, but also important to acknowledge that with that change in circumstance, your priorities should probably shift as well.
Can I add something small to that? Because it's just like life. You're going to miss out on things and you're going to experience loss and you have to go through it. That's part of life. So you want something, you don't get it. Well, you can throw your toys out the cart, but actually you should just be mature and learn to process the loss and go through the grief and rise again, choose something else.
I think the other thing that I've realized in the last few years with people sort of living their life on social media and putting the training blocks on social media, suddenly you've been talking about your road to Cape Town Marathon and every training run you're posting, and then all of a sudden now you get injured. Suddenly there's like loss of identity and like what now, and so as again managing expectations and realizing that there'll be other races and stuff like that.
Good question. Thanks, Josh. Anyone else got any questions?
How do I know how much to fuel throughout the race and at what time to take the nutrition throughout the race, for example, gels? So I struggle with finding that out on myself. Sometimes I take it too late, then I learn it too late. Sometimes I think I take too much, so especially the gels with caffeine. At some point I think about how much caffeine do I take into. How do I manage that before the race and have a plan for the race, so throughout I don't think about it and I know I'm doing the right thing.
So it's kind of going back to what the recommendations say is always a good place to start. So if you're running, like I would say, longer than 90 minutes to 2 hours plus, which is probably going to be likely for some people who are running marathons, I always recommend at least 60 grams of carbs in that hour. It can be from 30 to 60 up to 90 if you're going really, really long. So I always suggest try not take all of it at once. So if it's like what Carla and them do, they've set their watches to beep every 20 to 30 to 35 minutes. Again, you can figure that out as you train and practice it. So, run a 15K and practice that, taking that, see how you feel. And then with fueling before, like I mentioned in the beginning, it's always good to kind of do for 24 to 48 hours before the actual run or the race, really carbo-loading. So take your weight, maybe start at 8 grams per kg, and see how much carbs that is, and try and eat as much carbs as you can in the day. If you obviously don't have assistance from someone who knows, dietitian or whatever, it is good to kind of like plan, and you can use apps like MyFitnessPal to log certain foods to see what's actually in foods, because it's also, as an athlete, it's good to have awareness of the foods you're eating. Like Carla says, you don't want to have too much fat, fiber, or protein before. Protein kind of just displaces what you can eat from carbs too close, and then fat and fiber can disrupt the gut. So fried foods, dairies, creamy things, to kind of stay away within the carbo-loading period, and just stick to the most refined, basic carbs possible. So yeah, no like seeded breads, things like that. Keep it simple. Sweets, juices, apple juice, orange juice, whatever you like. Drink as much as possible, because like Carla says, the food is daunting. To eat that much is a crazy amount, and it's not necessarily lovely combinations of food. So just keep it to simple sweets before, and then during, you obviously can figure out whether you want your fuel to come from gels, whether you are carrying something where you can carry certain foods. A lot of the races you can check the race day maps and see how far the aid stations are planned out. So maybe you yourself don't have to carry something. If you don't love the gels, what you're gonna grab at an aid station, how much you need to grab. Because like we've chatted about, you don't wanna get to that place where you're hitting the wall. And it's very likely that will happen if you don't fuel properly. So to answer your question, start with 30 grams of carbs every 30 minutes is easy to kind of go from, and start within the first 30 minutes of the race. You don't have to wait until you're starting to feel crap before you start taking in the carbs.
I think something that's also important is that you need to practice like your fuel intake like in the weeks leading to the race day. So especially we talk about hitting the wall, which generally happens between sort of 28 to 36 kilometers. So if you're doing such a long training run, you should be replicating what you're going to do on race day. So that come race day, again, it's about the controllables, what you have under your control and what you don't, that there's no sort of new things. I mean, the weather and those things you can't control, but the things you can control, like focus on those. So lots of people might even try a new shoe because they've got this race day fit. They've been saving the shoe. Don't try a new shoe. Like race day, generally go and run at least in your outfit that you're going to wear for the day. Try it once or twice, see, because the shorts or the tights might look great, but if you didn't run on it, and then come race day, it's the first time you've tried it on, and then that's going to be another anomaly. Chafe, socks, as Nick mentioned, like running them before, and running them in the conditions. Running in those socks for 5Ks is a lot different running in the same socks for 35Ks. So try and replicate race day conditions as close as you can. So from fuel, your shoes, like I mentioned, the weather, you're not going to replicate. But to Keri's point, generally most of the training block is in winter, and then people suffer come Cape Town Marathon because in October it's generally hot, like dehydration, underfueling, underhydrating is a common thing that occurs. But if you can focus on the things you do have control, then do so. That's what's also recommended. Some of our training runs that we've done as groups, we've hit 36Ks. For many people, it's the first time they've ever, but it gives them the close experience to actually hitting the wall than not. So you don't want to be running 30 on race day and then suddenly your body's like, what is this? So focus on the things you do have control over. Fuel is one of them.
Sorry, just a quick thing to add. If you're taking in carbs that are greater than 60 grams, make sure the gel has a mix of glucose and fructose in it. So the way your body absorbs the glucose in the cell and all the carbohydrates in the cell, they've got little transporters. So if you're only taking glucose at a certain carbohydrate grammage, those transporters get saturated, so you can't actually use that carbohydrates effectively. So you want to take in fructose or another type of carbohydrate which uses a different pathway into the cell to use it as energy. So just read, or a lot of the gels are now, but read the labels to make sure it's not just a glucose gel. Make sure you're adding that.
I was just going to say, one year, Erin and I crewed for a runner at UTCT, Beth Pascal. I think she still has the 100K record from that year. She won the race, thanks to us. But before the race, I met with her, and she took out of her bag a Ziploc of gels. And I was like blown away by how many gels it was. And then she got another Ziploc, and then she got another Ziploc. And this was for each aid station. She had like 10 gels. And it completely changed my perception of fueling for racing. Essentially, she was saying, you're always going to be in deficit. I mean, you're always going to be in deficit. I might be wrong. I might not remember. And she essentially said she's been training her gut over years to take as much as she can. And she was literally taking 3 gels at every aid station, just sitting there taking 3 gels and 2 cups of Coke, and then leaving with like 10 gels. So I think she takes a gel every 15 or 20 minutes. So it was spring nutrition, and I know there was some controversy that they're not as full of carbs as other gels, but she didn't know that at the time. But the point is, it really changed my mindset about how often you need to fuel. I think I had been fueling myself once an hour, and after that I realized if I can afford it, I'm going to fuel much more often. But you just have to train your gut. So the little star in the corner, you mentioned caffeine. I think that's more complicated. Everyone has different caffeine sensitivity, so that's personal.
Questions? Yes.
I'm getting a question about incorporating the treadmill into training because I struggle a bit, and I want to know if you have any tips, or do you even use the treadmill? Because a lot of people say, especially for marathon training, it's like, yeah, you should run the most of the time outside. So that would be all.
So the treadmill as a tool during marathon prep, yes or no, I suppose?
Personally, I prefer to train in the environment that I'm going to be racing in. So if I'm racing on the road, I'll run on the road. If I'm racing on the trail, I'll try and find very similar trails to what I'm going to be racing on. However, I do think there can be a time and a place for a treadmill, especially if time is limited, the weather is horrific, you know, mums and dads have got children to look after, and you need to multitask. And you know, if it is that mental barrier of, I just prefer the treadmill and I'm not going to go and do the workout outside, but I know I can do it in the gym where I've got that distraction, I can watch something, then it's fine. Like, there's no rules about it. I think anything with training, we always want that specificity element to it. But if getting on a treadmill is going to make you run and do your training, then do it on a treadmill. Like, there's no right or wrong. Same with strength and conditioning. Like, I think strength is really important, but some people don't want to go to a gym. And they're like, can I do it at home? I'm like, yes, there's things that you can do everywhere. You can do it at home, you can do it in a park. And it's about finding the way that makes it work for you. So just because being outside on the road is preferable, don't overthink it if that's going to help you train and get your miles in.
And some of the top athletes in the world run mostly on treadmills. So proof is in the pudding.
I have a question as well. For kind of the panel, what is the difference on the impact of the joints from a treadmill to a road? So surely if you haven't trained a lot on the road and that mileage on the road, wouldn't there be different impact on running on a tar road than running on a treadmill in terms of like impact to the knees and hips and things?
Yeah, road's definitely harder, and you want to do, I would say, like your specific marathon-paced sessions, like stuff where you want to run fast, that is good to do on the road, but a softer surface is actually good. So for easy runs, I try to get on the trails as much as possible, and on a treadmill, it is going to be even softer, but you definitely want to do some of your runs on the concrete or the tar that you're going to be racing on, so you know what to expect.
Yeah, it's probably also, I think, for the vast majority of people doing it recreationally, like that fraction of a percent might not translate to a significantly better or worse experience on race day. So, you know, those inches matter for professionals more, I think. But again, that's a great point on like utilizing the tools around your lifestyle and what actually is conducive to your life, because you want to make it work. You know, you don't want to, running, you're already taking up a lot of your time. So time-wise, I think that's a great point. Yeah.
One run on the treadmill out of 25 runs is not going to make a huge difference. So as I said, being able to complete your training week and you have to do one treadmill run, it's not going to throw your training completely out the window.
We have got, thank you, Gideon. We've got our head coach, ladies and gentlemen, is Gideon. Shout out, Gideon. Thank you for that. We've got time for one last question. Does anyone have any, well, who would like to take the floor for the last cue?
Maybe a question. I suppose I'm speaking more to like recreational long distance runners, but is there any benefit to do, so I know that like if you go over the 3-hour mark, almost the cost benefit starts, your recovery time is exceeded or too long. So what is maybe opinion or science backed doing 2 long-ish runs on the weekend versus one like 3.5-hour run, maybe versus 2 1.5-hour runs on the weekend? Like, so you still both fatigued legs, but is one maybe better than the other?
So to repeat the question, when doing your big mileage over the weekend, does it make more sense to compress it into one big run, or would you want to split it into 2 pretty long runs?
Personally, I think if you're training to race on one day, it's better to do the longer run altogether as one, because like Hein was saying, like, you're not going to know what running to 36 kilometers feels like if you're going to split your runs. However, there's like time constraints, or in a beginner, that amount of volume just might not be possible for them. So we might split it to begin with when you're starting and kind of err on, you know, be like, I'm going to give you as little as possible, and we kind of go a little bit further on actual race day. But I think it is always better to do it in one go if you can. If your race is going to be super long and you're doing a 100-miler and it's going to be over 48 hours, then you do want to split it up and have 2 long runs back to back. So yeah, try and do it in one if you can. However, if you can't handle that volume, again, there's no harm in splitting it, but you do want to do a couple of those long ones. So you know how to fuel, you know what it's going to feel like. You've got that mental aspect of what you're going to get on race day, and it's more about that mental training as well, doing those longer runs and psyching yourself up for them, because they are very daunting sometimes.
I'm quite risk averse when it comes to programming, so I typically prefer to keep it just conservative. And when I do look at getting in a big run, I generally prefer splitting them. But again, I think understanding how the athlete or how you deal with a high acute load is very important, because if your body can sort of digest that, then it's cool to be able to expose yourself to that, test the nutrition, get in that mental space. But I think for most beginners, it can be a bit of a sort of fine line you're treading. And again, if we take, for instance, again, like Gideon and my approach with like RPE, so is your rate of perceived exertion, like how difficult something feels. If someone's feeling a bit sore, Gideon is a little bit more aggressive than I am. He's happy for them to maybe go around to like a 5 out of 10, whereas I'm like, if you're feeling more than a 3, stop it. So I think, you know, there is a bit of subjectivity to it, and knowing exactly how your body works and what is sort of digestible for you is also important.
Yeah, and those big runs are really fatiguing. So it's making sure that after you've done them, you are having the adequate recovery, fuel, sleep, and training-wise for the rest of that week. I think sometimes people will then just, after a really big run, jump into their usual training cycle that week and do intervals on a Tuesday, hills on a Thursday. They haven't fueled properly after finishing that run, and that's when you start to dig yourself into a hole. So if I do a very big run, the next week my volume is decreased, and I just focus on like sleep and eating as much as I can in that week to recover before doing another proper block of training the following week.
Also, like with back-to-back days, say you're running on a Saturday and then a Sunday, they typically won't be the same type of run. So they might be the same in terms of time on legs, but one might be a tempo run and then the next is a little easier pace. or if in case of trail, one might be like a vert focus on the Saturday, and then on the Sunday it'll just be a flat, like easy run. But the time on legs is the same, but they're not necessarily the same run.
Awesome, that's very insightful. Thank you, guys. Thank you for your questions, everyone. Those were really good, amazing questions. And the panelists, guys, thank you so much for being here. We actually have some gifts for you, as a small thank you for coming out. So everyone, please put your hands together for the panelists.
I love flowers.
For Hein and Nick. That's crazy. I had no hand in this. Thank you, everyone, for being here. We really appreciate the turnout. We hope that it provided some value. We will be putting it up somewhere on the internet. As you can see, there are a bunch of cameras and things. So if you want to refer back to it, it'll be out. I don't know what the lead time is, but we'll post it on socials. Obviously, it was a free event, and we loved having you guys here. If you do just have this innate urge to kind of support financially, please feel free to go and buy some things at the front. We've got merch, we've got snacks, we've got supplements. So go mad, absolutely no pressure. Your presence was all that we wanted, so thank you. But otherwise, thanks again for being here. Thank you, panelists. And yeah, it was awesome.
And good luck if you're racing Cape Town.
Good luck if you're racing Cape Town Marathon, exactly. Sure, that was super cool. Ooh, my legs are stiff now for my long run.